Hello YouTube. This is a follow-up video on turning the Mac Pro 2006 into a virtualization server with ESXi. And this is pretty much the storage situation. I mean, last video we upgraded the RAM to 32 gigs. We already did the CPU upgrade a while ago from two dual-core CPUs to two quad-core CPUs, the Xeon E5345s, 2.33 each. And today we're going to look at the storage situation, like I said. Now, this drive was already in the machine. This one contains already the VMware file system. Just a regular WD Blue, pretty much because it was the only drive I had as a spare to put the machines on. I don't need a data store for ISO files because I can link it to my NAS just fine using the network file system. That works, so I could use ISOs from there. So I can use the entire terabyte there for virtual machine storage, which is nice. I might add a file server to the system. I'll go over this drive in a minute. This is a spare SSD that I have. Not quite sure what I'm going to do with this. And this is the Hackintosh drive that belongs to my main machine. Originally pulled this from my iMac G5, actually. It's a 1 terabyte SATA 2 drive from 2009. Only has about 3,000 hours on it, so it still has plenty of life left. It's still in 100% condition, so very nice drive. It's a bit loud though. I mean, it vibrates a lot. So what I'm really contemplating here, what I should do with the storage in the Mac Pro. Now, virtual machines like to do I/O operations per second, or IOPS. To get the best amount of IOPS, of course, you could use an SSD or a fast SCSI hard drive or SAS hard drive, which this is sort of an intermediate solution. This is a 10K drive, of course, this WD Raptor. Has some very decent IOPS. The problem with this particular drive, pretty much I've had this thing laying around underneath my bed in a box for like 2 years or something like that. And the reason behind that is because I couldn't really get it to work on any machine running Microsoft Windows. I haven't tested it on other operating systems at the time because I wasn't really using them all that much. I've only been into Apple for about 1.5 years very actively now. But the problem was that I couldn't really get any data written to the drive or read from the drive properly. It would recognize the partition structure on the drive just fine, but I couldn't get any data on or off of it. And that was just weird. So I thought it was busted. I mean, I tried to format it, that failed. So I was like, I'll just give up on trying. I mean, I got this drive for free, I think, if I remember correctly. So, you know, it's not really a lost cause. I mean, I got a Crystal Disk Info reading on it. It wasn't blue anymore. It was yellow. It has a couple of reallocated sectors, about 12 or so. Nothing too alarming. I mean, I'm not going to put any critical data on it, just for experimentation, of course. So I figured that it might be a good idea to just give it another shot under a different operating environment. Maybe if we turn this into a VMware data store, we can just do a full nuke of the partition structure there, and maybe that's the problem. And maybe we can get this drive working again. So this might be the best intermediate solution between a slow-ass regular Joe 7200 RPM drive and the SSD, of course. So that's what I'm thinking. And plus, I can't really use SSDs in a Mac Pro because you need, 2.5 inch or 3.5 inch converter boxes. I prefer to use the products made by ICDoc because those are actually certified for the Mac Pro, so they work very well. But they're 20 euros each, and this SSD in itself is only worth 20 euros at this point because it's only 60 gig Agility 3. So, what I might end up doing here is, of course, I'm going to keep WD Blue for now. I might replace it with this Hitachi because this drive is overall just a tad faster. And it's a SATA 2 drive, so it fits better. This is a SATA 3 drive. Not that that matters much because, of course, a hard drive will never saturate the SATA 3 bus even, or SATA 2 bus even, SATA 300. But, you know, I kind of like that drive, and that one is just used for Hackintosh. So what I might do is I put this in my Dell Studio laptop that I still need to make a video about. Sorry about that. That thing has a 120 gig SSD in it. So I might put this one in there, Then I'll take this drive out of my main machine or leave it out, put my Hackintosh installation on that 120 gig that I get from the Dell laptop. And then I can just use all these, pretty much these two drives in the Mac Pro, and this one can be a spare. But for the time being, I'm just going to let this be the main drive. We're just going to see how it pans out. Performance seems to be pretty solid so far, so we might just go with the Raptor as an additional drive, if I can get it working, of course, because it's been laying there because I thought it was pretty much dead for about 2 years under my bed, but I just couldn't get myself to throwing it out because, well, let's just face it, Raptors look awesome. I mean, even if I couldn't get it working again, it's just going to be a display piece because it's just pretty awesome looking. Just a tiny little 2.5-inch drive, 150 gig, but it is, of course, enterprise storage, and that's what we want, don't we? So, without further ado, I'm going to install this into the Mac Pro. Let's see if I can find my screwdriver, actually. I'm just going to keep this a little bit more interactive. I'm just experimenting with doing stuff more on video. I mean, I think people are more interested in watching if the stuff actually happens instead of just some... Whoops. That's what happens when the rubbers degrade on the Mac Pro drive cages, or drive sleds. Yeah, the screws just drop out. Let's just do this the other way around, shall we? Great, now I just gotta dig out the screws. Well, one fell to the ground and I can't really see it anymore. I'll dig that one out later. You only need... Oh, right. I'm a blind fuck. Well. There we go. Some snapped into place at least. I think. Yep. Love that noise. I love how simple these drive sleds are. You just tighten a bunch of screws, you just slide it in and it's in. It's done. Yeah, this sled doesn't even have the rubbers anymore. It's that worn. I think these are from the 2008 model, if I had to guess. Because if I remember correctly, the 2008 model has these bigger screws. So. By the way, not every model of the WD Raptor will actually work with the Mac Pro because of the way the SATA connector is aligned. If it's not aligned like this to the left side of the drive here, it won't fit because most Raptors have the assembly for the SATA connector and power right here in the middle. That does not match up with the Mac Pro, so you'd have to get another adapter for it. But this one will work. This is the HLFS series. This entire series will work just fine on a Mac Pro. Some other series as well, but you'd have to look it up. I haven't checked in a long time. I have used or tried to use this in my 2008 Mac Pro back in the day, but couldn't get it working there either because I couldn't format it. Probably because the partition structure was entirely corrupted due to a couple of sectors there that got in the way. But, you know, maybe it is actually dead, but we just need to put it into the Mac Pro and see for ourselves. Okay, well, let's grab the other disc as well. Move the tripod over to the bed, because I'm one of those poor people who can't afford a freaking workbench or anything. Well, I just don't have one. Gotta work with what you got, right? Now, let's just slide that drive in. I'm being derpy today. Let's see there. Yep, there we go. Now that's in. We're going to leave the 30 gig cache SSD in there. There we go. Whoops, I think I fucked something up. Oh, I see now. Yeah. PCIe connector got in the way. Okay, well that's in. I'm just going to boot it up. I already installed ESXi onto it. I'll go over that once we are booting the system up. The Mac Pro is just chilling down there. Well, as you can see probably, let me just get the thing out. This is pretty much the way that businesses do it as well. Most modern servers actually have SD card slots where they just, you know, you can just put an SD card in there, install your hypervisor, and run all of your virtual machines from there. That's pretty much the way they do it. you don't ever install a hypervisor on a direct hard drive. Because quite frankly, you need the storage for other things than just the hypervisor, because it only takes up a gig or so in the worst case scenario ever. Alright, so now just wait for the bong. There we go. Hold in the Option key. Wait for the stick to appear. There we go, EFI boot. Now, installing ESXi on a Mac Pro is not really all that easy. I really don't recommend installing it directly on a Mac Pro. What I did was, essentially, I made a virtual machine in VMware Fusion. You could also use VMware Player for this, to use the USB flash drive pretty much as a physical disk. You know, you usually just add a virtual hard drive to a virtual machine. In this case, you add a physical hard drive to the virtual machine. In this case, a USB stick. And then you just install as normal, because you can't really boot the installer properly on these Mac Pros because of their Achilles heel, the 32-bit firmware. So once I got that working, all I really had to do was replace the boot files. There are two boot folders in an ESXi installation. There are EFI boot and EFI VMware. And you just need to add the files that come with ESXi 5.0 and put them in those folders. And it will magically start working. You just need to remove the USB flash drive from the machine that you made to stick with, plug it into the Mac, and you can directly boot to your hypervisor. Really simple. Well, it's not simple, but it works really well. And once you've got the hang of it, it's actually very, very nice. It's just really a problem that these Macs only have 32-bit firmware, because nothing pretty much supports that. But this trick even works on the very latest version of the ESXi hypervisor from VMware. If you want to try this yourself, by the way, on this old Mac Pro, ESXi 6 is completely free. All you need to do is go to the VMware website and just look for the free version of ESXi. Now keep in mind that you do need to have the Update 2 version, because if you don't, you won't get the management UI, and you'd have to manage the server through the vSphere client on the desktop, which isn't quite as advanced anymore, and a lot of features are being dropped. I'm running ESXi 5.1 on this Mac Pro because it has better support for legacy operating systems. On ESXi 6 you really can't virtualize anything lower than Windows Vista, so that's something to keep in mind. So if you want to run a couple of XP VMs or Server 2003, Server 2000, stuff like that, that I might actually do on this, because I'm actually really contemplating building a legacy environment, then you really should look elsewhere. So you really should look at 5.x, preferably 5.0 or, well, 5.1, because I couldn't get my hands on 5.0. I've pretty much learned all of my VMware stuff with 5.5 though. I've only been working with 6.0 in the past 6 months or so. It's pretty nice though, the management UI from the web client, because there is no desktop client for Mac or Linux, so you're really limited to Windows to manage your hypervisor, which is a bad thing. But yeah, for this thing I only use the vSphere client as well, so I just use Parallels on my Macs, and that works just fine. Well, there we go, it's booting now. With 32 gigabytes of memory and 2 Intel Xeon CPUs. If you've never worked with ESXi before, this is pretty much all you're going to see. You're just going to see this screen with an IP address in the middle, like right there or something. And that's all you're going to see. You're not going to see an operating system or anything. This is the only interface. The only thing you can really change here is just, change your network settings, change your admin password, stuff like that. And everything else needs to be done remotely. But we'll take a look at that once everything is up and running here. So yeah, let's take a look at the machine, and maybe we can start doing some stuff with the Raptor drive now. There we go, it's done. Alright, we're now at the Windows desktop, so we can start managing the ESXi server. Now, for managing an ESXi 5.x server, we're going to be using the desktop client, which is known as VMware vSphere client. Now we're greeted with which IP address we want to connect to. 1.100 is the ESXi server itself, and 1.101 is the vCenter server, which is the management environment for VMware. Reasons for using vCenter server include scalability options, high availability options, because you can just cluster a bunch of ESXi hosts together, central licensing management, central user management for access to the virtual machines. If you have a VDI environment, virtual desktop infrastructure, you want to really be very careful which users have which permissions in your environment. So basically, regular users for the virtual machines, because that's what VDI is about, getting a virtual machine to all of your users, is just that they have rights to do stuff with their own virtual machine, and not with anything else, because they could really fuck up your environment. Right, so we're here in the vCenter console now, and we have two machines running. This is the vCenter appliance that is running this entire environment on top of the host, the Mac Pro 2006. I did this because I just didn't really want any other machines on the network, just for the sake of managing this host. Quite frankly, you need at least 2 physical CPU cores and 8 gigs of RAM in order to even run vCenter. It's quite a heavy program, but I've got 32 gigs, I've got 8 cores, it's just fine. This is the management server I use to access the environment externally. That's actually quite handy. So yeah, I'll not show that right now. I was thinking about doing that, but I'm not going to, because quite frankly, I've got the profile set to my external IP, and I don't really need that leaking out, or else I'll get a bunch of hacks from the internet. So we're just not going to do that. But we're here to test and see if what WD Raptor is still alive. Now let's go to configuration and storage. Now these are our data stores right now. ISO data stores, of course, located on the NAS through NFS. We've got Western Digital Blue, which is called WDB. It's all working normally. It's 1 terabyte, and this is the cache drive, the 30 gig Samsung V200, if you want to call it that. Now we're going to be adding some storage here, disk or LUN. I'm adding a disk here, but you don't have any iSCSI or fiber channel going on here. Okay. Well, it is seeing the drive, so that's a good start. Local 88 disk, non-SSD, 140 gig roughly. No, that's about right. VMS5, sure. Yeah, currently has an NTFS partition on. Yeah, that one is broken. Enter data store name. We're just gonna call it Raptor, so I know which drive is which. Use all of the space for this data store, and finish. Let's see what happens. Let's see if we can actually create a data store in it. Still in progress. Really got some good hopes for this drive here. There it is. Status normal. Oh wow. So it does in fact recognize that it's not really dead. Don't know what's up with the cache SSD. Probably because the disk is full. Yeah, only has 800 megs left. I'll adjust the alerts for that later. So what is very interesting right now is, can we get some data copied to the drive at all right now? What's a good thing to test here? Yeah, we'll just use this Server 2003 image. Yep, it's working. It's not even taken all that long to copy over the network to the Mac Pro here. That's very promising. I'm just going to cancel that because I don't want it to take up any space here. So let's do some real testing here. Let's create a new virtual machine. I'm not going to put it in the management folder. We're just going to put it in on the host itself. We're just going to call it test for now. Put it on the Raptor data store. Windows. Well, Server 2012 would be nice. Let's do that. Yep, one network adapter. Thin provisioning, please. 40 gigs is way too much, but let's do 30. Edit before completion. Let's see, got 4 gigs of RAM allocated. We're going to allocate some more CPUs because, quite frankly, if we just use one core, we're going to be bottlenecked by the CPU and we can't really see what the storage is doing. Let's see here. We want to add a DVD ISO. Let's see, ISO. Got a bunch of stuff on here. I think I have Windows Server 2012 on here. Yeah, I do. R2. There we go. This is legit stuff, by the way. I got this from MSDN. Let's see, connected power on. Yes, that's very important. Also, we'll just boot to the BIOS. Okay, it's creating the virtual machine. It's done. Let's start it. Open up the console. Well, so far so good. So I'm just going to go through the Windows Server 2012 R2 installation here. Once it's up and running, I'll get back to you and we'll just get an overall idea for the performance. I am thinking though that it's most likely going to be bottlenecked by the CPU cores more than it is going to be bottlenecked by the disk. But so far it appears to be working okay. So I'll be right back. Well, we're not out of the woods yet. Because this is actually a problem that I was running into a while ago as well. As you can create partitions just fine, but it refuses to format them. This does not mean that the drive is per se very dead. It probably means that there is something wrong with the boot sector or something along those lines. So what I'm thinking here is, in order to use this drive, I think I can use it, is I probably need to what's the right phrasing for that? Probably I just need to install the operating system on a different drive, then copy over the data files to this one, and then boot them up and see if that works. You know what? I'm actually going to try just that. It's a different kind of virtual machine though, but just, you know, a smaller one. But I might just try that. So I'm going to see if that works, and if it doesn't, then, well, it's pretty much just going to be storage, I guess. And I can't really do anything with it on the Windows platform if it keeps doing this. Don't know what it does on Mac though, so, you know, I might just experiment with that a bit. But I'm just going to see if this strategy actually works, and I'll get right back to you. Alright, let's see if this worked. I'm gonna boot up the machine here. At least attempt to boot it up. Power on is in progress. I copied it. Okay, now let's see. I can hear the drive crunching, but it's not really appear to do anything. Let's reset it. Right. Okay, well, I guess now we pretty much know that the drive is not bootable in its entirety. So that's a shame. That pretty much means that this was all for sort of nothing. Well, not really, but I mean, we got to learn a couple things here, right? Yeah, I'm just gonna shut down, I guess, now. Now we can just delete it, pretty much. This means that I can only use the Raptor drive as storage. Pretty much just move files to it, and that'll work just fine. But it can be used to boot a virtual machine, even. It can be used to install a virtual machine. So it's just a storage drive. That's not necessarily a bad thing. but it's just a little bit of a shame, I guess. So I'll just pull it out and just rethink what I'm going to do with it. This probably means, though, that I will have to... that I'm actually going to use that Hitachi drive, that 1 terabyte in the Mac Pro from now on, as the secondary drive. But I'll only really put that in if the environment ends up being very slow once I'm done with configuring everything. So we'll take a look at that in a different video once I've got more up and running. But for now, we've got pretty much everything sorted here on the Mac Pro. We've got a management server running. That's all just fine and dandy, really. We could just take a look at that real quick. There we go. Let's see here. So this is pretty much just the server that you'll log on to if you want to manage this thing remotely, and it will make this the dedicated management machine. Anyway, let's see here. Did the console just go away? No, there it is. There we go. Yeah, I still need to do updates. Don't really care that much right now. So yeah, it's just a regular Windows Server 2008 R2 machine. Nothing too fancy. Also has, of course, the vSphere client, so I can manage my machines. Has just 1 CPU core and 2 gigs of RAM assigned to it, so it's not really all that quick. But it's good enough to just do the basic management stuff, so I'm fine with that. Anyway, this concludes the Raptor adventure in the Mac Pro. I thought it was alive for just that brief minute, or that brief moment, but it turns out it's just not usable for anything but storage. I hope you enjoyed this video anyway. I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.